So I'd love to start with you telling us a little bit about what's the core problem that your talk is addressing.
Perfect. So the goal of my talk is to basically describe the board after everybody implemented different deflection tools. So right now, the easy question, all the how-tos are already being handled by your chatbots or whatever tool that you decided to implement. But now your agents are basically seeing a different in the queue, in the mix of questions that they're getting. So we're getting a lot of more complicated questions, more complex questions. And obviously, the goal is not that now we will still escalate everything to the tier two or tier three or to engineering. The goal is how we can upskill the support agents to actually being able to now solve a lot of more complicated issues that they couldn't before. So I think the change in thinking is like, how can we provide the technical tools, the enrichment, and the context about each incoming ticket to help with that?
Excellent. And on that note, why do you think that people should care about this problem right now?
So I think it's a combination of two things. One, everybody is trying to ask themselves, how can AI help me? And I think this is exactly the space in which you can upskill human capabilities with agentic capabilities by bringing context and technical tools in an easy way to the agents. So that's one. And I think the second thing is that eventually we need to understand that automation cannot solve everything. And every organization is really different and deals with different complexities. And today's support is something that's really hard to scale, right? It's really easy when you're a small company and everybody knows the product by heart. But when you have a huge product line and different customer with different sizes, like one are enterprise, one is scale, it's hard to adapt to it. And I think thinking about how to create this better context engine, how to better connect basically the ticketing system to everything else that's happening in the company, I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
And what would you say is at risk if teams or leaders ignore this issue? What does that look like?
Good question. So I think two things. One, I think that the goal eventually is to provide good customer support. The goal is to provide an answer as close to the customer as you can. And customer expects you to know who they are, the relationship, how they're operating with the product. So with everything with support, like the goal is eventually to make sure customers are happy and they want to grow the usage with your product as everything. You want to make sure that you're thinking about that. So the goal eventually is to provide obviously the best customer service that you can. And the other thing is, I think also from thinking about the support agents themselves, I think giving them these capabilities basically allows them to improve their capability, improve their understanding of the product, and basically make sure that they are enjoying their work as much as they can and providing the best customer service as possible.
Who would you say is most affected by this problem in different areas of this issue?
Definitely. I think especially when we're seeing the uptick in technical complicated products and the amount of system that every support agent needs to deal with. So every time you get a ticket, you need to basically open 1,000 different tabs from like different observability system to billing to whatever it is to open the Slack to seeing what happened last week. And it's just overwhelming. I think we're seeing it across the industry and across different verticals. But definitely, I think the more complicated the product is, it just exponentially gets much, much harder. And of course, as the company is bigger and the amount of product lines and features that you need to support, it's so hard to do all the context switching between all the different applications. So that's where I think like thinking about it in a more holistic approach on how we can enrich the data and provide the context and basically use AI to provide the relevant tooling can be significant.
Where have you personally experienced this problem?
Perfect question. So my previous role, I was a product leader in the network security space at Google. That meant that a lot of the time customers are under attack or have a major problem in their networking infrastructure and they come to support. And basically what you realize is that when you know the customer really well, or when it's a big customer, it's easy because you know them well and you have the relationship and you can actually support them to the best way that you can. But sometimes it's a less familiar customer or a new customer even. And then you start scrambling and asking the customer 1,000 of questions that ideally sit somewhere in the pre or post sales data. And it's frustrating. And I feel like it can be so, so much better. And that's my hope to basically relay this message to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, it matters to all customers, right? Whether you know them or they're brand new. What do you think that people usually underestimate or get wrong in this area?
I think today everybody's focused on like, okay, how can I deflect tickets, which is great. It helps with all the how-tos and definitely reducing the simple tickets. But eventually, I think a lot of what colors a customer experience and how they're thinking about a product is basically those test moments in which everything doesn't really work well. And it's a really complicated problem. And they want to make sure that you can solve it to the best of your ability and provide the technical data and speak at their level. So I think that's the next frontier that we should focus on.
So, the last question, why should someone attend your talk?
I think for every leader that focuses on technical complex tickets, they should think of how the world is going to look at after they implemented their deflection tools. So now how can I basically upskill my agent to the best of their abilities to provide the best customer service? I think going back to the struggle of having so many system opens and connecting the dots, I think thinking about like technical context and how I can understand quicker who's the customer, how they're using the product, what am I actually seeing in the backend, in the logs or whatever it is, I think it's getting more important than ever. And I think not a lot of people are discussing it. We're all like suffering through it and used to how things are working today, but it can be much better. And we should all think together on how to improve it.